welcome in. This is your Jock Market Power Hour for this week's Mayakoba Championship. I'm Rick Gaiman, that right there, Joe Idoni. And Joe, we're back at it again, and we've got ourselves a little bit of a field here. 7 of the top 20 players in the world.
Isn't that nice? That's awesome to see. Yeah, back continuing along this sort of Caribbean swing season schedule here, but this is obviously a much stronger event this week at a course that I think is traditionally a little bit more predictable. But we'll see how things shake out. Excited for another Power Hour.
Yeah, if you are just joining us, let me get this out of the way, because if you've stumbled in here, this is a Jock Market Power Hour for the next hour or so. Joe and I are going to take you through everything that's going on in the jock market for this week's Mayakoba Championship. That right now we're in the IPO phase. That means you can bid on shares of golfers if you're one of the high bidders. When that closes around, 9 p.m. Eastern time or a few minutes before, then you're going to be allocated those shares. And then, of course, you can buy, sell, and short shares of golfers once this tournament starts on Thursday morning. Couple other housekeeping items. We're giving away $100 tonight. If you want to win $20, 5 $20 increments to the Jock Market, all you have to do is put your Jock Market username in the chat. Very, very simple. Finally, if you haven't deposited yet, go ahead and use the code POWER. That is up to a $50 deposit bonus, the best possible deposit bonus out there. And one big milestone that we hit here, Joe, or I shouldn't say we, but our very own Austin Blaske becomes what I assume to be the first to ever make $1 million, $1 million worth of trades in the jock market. Jock Market was nice enough to send him what appeared to be a bottle of champagne. Pretty crazy stuff.
Appeared to be a bottle of champagne, appeared to be a t-shirt, a little golf towel action there. So he's usually in here. I don't see him in the comments just yet, but congrats to him. That's a wild number to really think about, with this thing really only being around for the last year. I know a lot of that is there he is. It's good days, it's bad days, but apparently Austin's had quite a few good days. So congrats to him. Very cool milestone for both himself and Jock Market. So great to see.
Yeah, and also good because I think it illustrates a lot of things, Joe. It illustrates that there are a lot more sports going on, right? We're kind of in the thick of it now with hockey and NBA, and baseball just ended, but football's here and golf is here. There's just a lot going on. And as these markets continue to get more and more liquid, we want to see more Austins, right? More guys cross over the $1 million mark, because as more people are playing, this experience only gets better.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to play. Obviously, Austin has I'm sure at like some point started off relatively small and new to this. If we have any new people here, we have the deposit bonus active, and you just chip away. Like, that's the whole thing. It's like, it's just building this portfolio and continuing to try to grow this account to the point where you can buy 100 shares of a golfer. You can max out on different guys across the boards, and it just gives you more and more opportunities. But so cool to see the new players in the chat, as well as some of our old favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we turn our attention to this week in Mayakoba, I can't help but look back for just 1 second, because last week, Joe, Lucas Herbert, here are the stats. These are on my website, RickRunGood.com. These are available for free. You can download them. Also, I added a button for golfer profiles. I can get to that in just a little bit. But Lucas Herbert was $5 a share last week. Got the full payout, $25 a share, with Patrick Reed, Danny Lee, Patrick Rogers, and Taylor Pendrith kind of rounding out that top 5. Again, a couple of guys in that $5, $6 range that ends up being very valuable. And then Patrick Reed, who I think had a lot of questions about him last week, essentially gets the job done. And only in the jock market do you probably feel like Patrick Reed got the job done.
Yeah, and I did. Like, if you remember right, he was my guy. So a couple of my market movers up there. Scott Stallings at 6 too. So I had a good week. Svenny finished in the top 20. So it was a good week for me. It was a week that I was kind of in need of and able to have some guys close. But yeah, Patrick Reed, the amazing Sunday run. I thought for a minute he may squeak himself into a playoff there, but congrats to Lucas Herbert, who has been able to come through and win a couple of tournaments recently, and shown the ability to kind of back that up. The following thing, I like this thing with Austin here. Initial deposit was $20, never anymore.
That's wild.
That's unbelievable.
That's wild. There should be a 30 for 30 about this.
There should be. I was just thinking, man, there should be a documentary on this guy. He's made $1 million in trades. Started with $20. Like, this is truly like a pretty incredible story. So that's awesome. But sort of back to the Bermuda, a lot of guys who we've been sort of touching on in the past couple of weeks were able to kind of come through. We had that weather draw that we talked about may happen. Yeah. So we saw some advantages there for guys who played it correctly on the in-tournament adding of shares as well.
You mentioned the market movers. Let's turn our attention to this week's market movers. If you're new, this is where Joe and I pick one golfer in each of the 3 tiers. We've got our blue chip guys, we've got our mid caps, we have our penny stocks, and we kind of go on the record and say these are the guys that we're looking to invest in this evening. I think, Joe, last week we started at the top. Let's start at the bottom. Our penny stocks for this week's Mayakoba Championship.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Guido. I'm not sure where exactly he'll finish up. He may get a little bit closer to that mid cap, but he's 150 to 1 as sort of a betting ticket. So I feel like he serves the purpose here of the penny stock. 2 really good rounds last week and 2 not so great ones. But he's a birdie maker. Like, the kid goes out there and scores. He's got a good bit of confidence. He's got 2 European Tour wins. He burst onto the scene, obviously, at the U.S. Open at Torrey, which it was a little bit of a coastal course, I suppose, which you could maybe give a decent comp where the wind tends to blow sometimes out there. But obviously performed pretty well in his PGA Tours thus far, averaging over doubling your money every time you play him. Only 4 starts on the record, but I feel like this is a good spot. I like that he played last week and got himself acclimated to some of the conditions and the elements that the Caribbean coastal courses can bring. I look for him to have a good week this week and possibly finish in the top 20.
Yeah, he's got 4 cash markets. 2 of them he has been profitable. 2 of them he has lost you money. But if you've invested in him each and every week, he has made you money. I'm sticking with Sam Ryder. He is just someone who's been racking up a ton of fantasy points. You can see that he's a little bit boom or bust here, Joe. So here is his golfer profile page. So you can see the spikes. And anytime that bar is over the line, that means he returns you money because the line is his IPO price. So while he only has 9 out of 28 winning markets, he is on average making you 22%. So when he does make you money, he makes you a lot, which, Joe, I think we've talked about this before. I think I prefer that, right? When you're playing in the jock market, I like these spiky guys as opposed to guys that just make me 10 more cents a share.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all in it for a little bit of a roll of the dice. We like to see, especially with these penny stock guys, right? We want to see sporadic performances where they can really explode one week. And that's kind of what we're looking to capitalize on in this sort of $2 to $3 range.
All right, let's move on up to that mid-cap area. This has been historically some of the more valuable areas. Obviously, there tends to be more golfers in this $5 and $6 range, or more athletes, I suppose, is a better way to put it. So, Joe, who are we targeting in the middle of this board this evening?
I like Keegan Bradley this week. The approach numbers have been pretty great recently, even going back as recent as some of the FedEx Cup playoff run there. He's obviously sporadic. Much of it, as we know with Keegan, rides or dies with that putter. I like guys who tend to not be the best performing putters on some of these lightning fast Bermuda green surfaces and bent grass that are very difficult. They tend to get tentative, right? They don't have a lot of confidence with the putter. They tend to get these are going to be slower greens. The pass palm, I think, maybe can free him up to be aggressive and utilize some of his strengths in terms of finding the fairway off the tee and using his irons to kind of stick it in there close and give himself plenty of opportunities.
You and I are on a similar page here in the middle. Let's find some ball strikers who might be able to be saved by Paspalum. While you go with Keegan Bradley, I go with Emiliano Grillo. His metrics, while we don't have the full strokes gained, putting numbers for Paspalum, he's been great on this surface. He's never missed a cut. He's gained strokes in the 10 events that he's played on this surface in his PGA Tour career. So I'm looking at Emiliano Grillo to hopefully get out there, continue to hit it as well as he normally does from tee to green, and then hopefully roll the rock a little bit better. Before I move on, Joe, so Kyle says, can you explain which graph you are using that shows the IPO line? So this right here is RickRunGood.com. If you go to PGA Tools under free tools and click Jock Market, This is the page you will see. It says golfer profiles. You can click that. And then this black line is the IPO price for that evening. The bar is what their final payout was, is how to decipher that. Joe, this leaves us with just one more selection to make this evening. That are the blue chippers. Where are we going?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of fold my hand at the very top and go a little bit below. I like Billy Horschel.
Okay.
I like Billy Horschel in these Florida, Texas, Caribbean type environments, even though he did just win in tough conditions at the BMW PGA Championship on the European Tour. Shows he does carry a little bit of good recent form in there. When I sorted, was kind of looking at some of the stats and just looking at strokes gained total on short golf courses, sub 7,200 yards, rated out first. I like his ability. These guys at the top in terms of Thomas, Finau, Brooks, Scheffler. My concern with them in a place like the jock market is while I think that they all hold more win equity than someone like Billy Horschel, I also think on a course like this, there's more volatility. There's more chance that they miss a cut. We saw it with Brooks last year. You get a little wayward off the tee here, and you're basically in the rainforest. I like Billy Horschel off the tee in terms of gaining strokes, with the irons, with the driver. He's good on approach, carries in some good form as well. I'm going to go with him as a little off-the-radar blue chip pick this week.
Okay, I want to leave his graph up here for just 1 second because what you're seeing, he's been almost a break-even golfer, averaging just under 3% ROI over the course of his 23 cash markets. But this does not do Billy Horschel any justice because his wins, the match play, and his recent win on the European Tour are not included on this. So keep that in mind. Even what you see with kind of PGA Tour metrics, they're not going to be as good for Billy Horschel because all his best stuff is not on display. And I think that's
a great point. Two big time wins, once a WGC, one maybe the premier event on the European Tour in the last 9 months for him. Neither of them showing up sort of in a lot of your stat models or that jock market data there.
Yeah, there is absolutely no doubt on where I'm going with my blue chipper. His name is Viktor Hovland. He is your defending champion. He is averaging 9.75% ROI in his 24 cash markets. Half the time he's made you money, half the time he's lost. As much as I love him, you can throw all that out the window and you can just look at the ball striking numbers, Joe. And he is one of the most pure ball strikers on planet Earth, which certainly gives you a hell of a floor in a game like golf. So as much as I love the guy and just enjoy him, he's unbelievable at golf. And
he's unbelievable at golf. And you've been akin to a little budding friendship with Vic. I saw that you had a tremendous pod with him, a nice sit down interview. Let me ask you, what was the coolest or most interesting thing that you think you learned from Vic in your time speaking with him?
He's a self-motivator. He can find motivation in a lot of things. He does not like to think, he'll go and play. I mean, he missed the cut the first 2 times he played at Mayakoba, and it was very much like, hey, maybe we should stop playing Mayakoba. And he's like, I'm 24. Like, let me prove you all wrong. I don't know what good courses are for me yet. I'm going to go out there and prove everybody that I can play here. Goes out, wins the golf tournament. So he's very, very self-motivated, which is a skill. It's a skill, and he's mature beyond his years. It's impressive.
I love it. He's mature, but he seems like also to have this like kid in him where it's almost like it's almost like he's not quite to the point where he's like grinded for years and this is a job. It's like he's having so much fun with it and doing what he loves to do. And you could tell he's passionate about it. That I think that really shows in his on-course demeanor and has helped him.
Absolutely. Let's do this. Let me give away a little bit of money. The first $20 this evening goes to Jordan Roberts. Row Tide. Oh, I get it. Row Tide. Congratulations. You are on the board. We will get you set up with your $20 to the jock market in 1 to 40 business days, usually 1 or 2. Congratulations. If you want to be like Jordan and you want to win $20 to the jock market, it's very simple to do. All you have to do is put your jock market username in the chat right now. And I've got $80 more to give away over the course of the evening. And now it is time. It is time to unveil the big board. The big board is where we show you the live pricing. And here it is, Joe. Viktor Hovland at the top, $8 a share, with Abraham Answer right behind at $7.26. Let's start there. As as popular as these two are going to be, I don't necessarily think they are going to be 1-2. We've got Justin Thomas lurking. We just have other big names at the top that are going to try to come and make a scene here.
Yeah, I think JT is the guy that we all have circled in terms of making a late run here, who isn't quite up there at this moment. I think Hovland probably stays in that 1 or 2 spot. I would expect JT to probably accompany that other spot. Look, he's defending. He's playing great. The form's fantastic. You see the finishes there have been consistent. And sometimes those are even like if you have him at the right moment, there's a little bit of a fade on Sundays recently where he's kind of moved his way down the leaderboard, which I think, it's particularly at the Shriners. I think the CJ Cup, he may have went in reverse a little bit too. So there's times where we see the pop from Victor. I think this is going to be a great week for him. But yeah, I think we're all anticipating that sort of JT run over the next 20 minutes or so.
Especially because he has that number 1 pre-ranking here,
yeah.
Joe. And that means he is going to break all ties. He's currently $2.75. That's certainly going to come up. Let's pull up Justin Thomas here because I want to see how he's been doing not Justin Harding, Justin Thomas. Okay. Yeah. Kind of some big payouts here, right? The win at the Players Championship, the full $25 payout, 16 at the Northern Trust, another 12 at the Tour Championship. So he's obviously capable of getting you a first, second, or third place payout.
Yeah, we've seen a little bit of a resurgence from JT. You can see kind of that stretch there, which we all knew from basically April to August, where he was a loser in almost every contest.
Every single
week. He just started bleeding strokes on approach, which is like you can pretty much pencil him in for 3-4 strokes gain approach in every single tournament he plays in. He lost that for a little bit. I think that he regained that moving through the end of the FedEx Cup. I think that he got himself a little bit of confidence back at the Ryder Cup where we saw him play pretty well, which is always an environment that sort of brings the best out of a guy like Justin Thomas. I was just looking at some of his stuff last year where he did go for the highest priced golfer at $11.61 in the IPO. Last year at Mayakoba, he was a slight loser there, ended up paying out $10 a share, but we'll see if he cracks that $10 mark again tonight.
Oh, yeah, good call. I guess we could certainly look back at last year here because we have these. So let's sort by IPO price and see how this shook out. Oh, Abraham Answer was only $8. Does he go for more or less than $8 tonight?
I think he goes for just above $8 a share.
$8 for Abraham Answer. Victor Hovland was $8.01. Daniel Berger was $8.02. Yeah, JT far and away. That we're not going to see that tonight. We're not going to see a $3 gap between Justin Thomas or whoever the top golfer is and the rest of the field. Let me pull up the big board here. And while I do, I'll remind you that this IPO phase is going to go until a few minutes before 9 p.m. Eastern time this evening. And we've seen some late closes in the last couple weeks. We've seen some early ones, so make sure you are prepared and you are rocking and rolling. Plenty of momentum for Aaron Wise and Joaquin Niemann this week. Those two, along with Billy Horschel, round out that $6 range. Joe, how do you envision this evening playing out for these golfers here?
I think Wise maybe gets a little bit of a bump. I would be surprised to see Niemann go much higher than like 625, 650. Wise has been great, man. Obviously the T2 here last year, you look at the last couple of finishes, he's been a steady returner for you. He's found a level of consistency that I think he was always searching for. And a lot of people that have been playing him have been awaiting. Look at that 5.
Look at this last like 5 or 6 starts.
Look at that trajectory that he's on right now. Like the natural next step is a win. I think this is a great spot for him. Those other names at the top, like you see Thomas, you see Koepka, you see guys like Reed even, who played really well last week. In there, they get loose off the tee, and that can cause big trouble here. And I think that gives an extra little bump to a guy like Aaron Wise, who really kind of has the off the tee game and the driver dialed in right now. We know his approach play. He switched to that longer putter, which I think has been a big benefit for him. So playing great. I see no reason that, especially in a place like Jock Market, to kind of go back to him.
Yeah, that last 5 or 6 starts, that's what we call up and to the right for Mr. Aaron Wise. Very good looking trajectory there. Now we enter this $5 range, and this is where everybody always starts to pile up. Justin Thomas has already jumped up into that $5 range. Sergio Garcia, Seamus Power, Keegan Bradley, Taylor Gooch. How do you start assessing this very, very popular range of golfers?
Yeah, I think this range, we see a lot of mix up and change over the last 20 minutes in this range. So I think that we'll see that again. I like Seamus Power a lot this week. He's one of the guys that I'm sort of targeting. Didn't have the best run last week, but still was fine, right? He's been so consistently good in all areas of the game that I don't mind going right back to him in what I would consider sort of a similar comparable situation this week.
Yeah, here's your Seamus Power, who has just been lighting up the jock market. I mean, he's arguably one of the most valuable golfers. I mean, basically of 2021. You know, he has returned you a profit in 11 of 16 markets. Average ROI is 40%. I mean, it's a really good thing going for Seamus Power right now. But I'm glad you mentioned this because there is a fairly strong correlation, at least these back-to-back weeks, of seemingly emphasis on accuracy, playing out of the fairway. The shorter hitters are still live, right? Brian Gay's won both of these events. That should tell you something this week and last week, right? I think the guys that we considered last week that most people are just ready to throw away and move on from, I think we should reconsider again.
Absolutely. If you like when I ran a stat model this week, I didn't change a whole lot. I put a little more emphasis on strokes gained off the tee, but I'm going to kind of run it right back. And the guys that I liked last week, I'm going to like this week. You made a great point there. And what's, I think, even more important in swing season when you factor in that for a lot of these players, it is sort of a de facto off season for them.
Yes.
You want guys that are playing, right? Guys that have rounds under their belt, that have, just played in 4 rounds last week, plus the practice round, plus we're on the range before and after. Like, you want guys, that a club has been in their hand for 6-7 hours a day. That's always comforting to know that you have some results when there's some definite unknowns about some of the other guys in the field this week where these guys can all turn it on at the flip of a switch, but it's easier for those guys who I think have a little bit of recency to kind of lean on.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We know this time and time again. Some of these guys use this as a end of year vacation. So you kind of have to weed those guys out a little bit, or at least try to do your best to do so. Back to the big board. And what I've got this sorted by now here, Joe, is projected rank. We talked about Justin Thomas, and since we've talked about him, he's doubled in price. The I guess 2 guys who are lagging behind right now. Tony Finau, the second pre-ranked golfer, who by almost any sports book would be one of the top 5 favorites this week, and Terrell Hatton in a similar boat, $2.75 a share, also probably a top 5 or 6 in the odds makers, lines for this week. But so far, not seeing the love in the jock market.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a bump on both of them. Hatton played pretty well a couple of weeks ago. I had some shares of him at the CJ Cup where he folded a little bit on Sunday, but was kind of in there going into after Saturday's round. Finau has just been kind of on a great run recently. Kepka's down there at like $2 a share too.
I'm getting ready to get to him. Yeah.
I bet Brooks. I worry about him a little bit in the jock market format because I think that while I think he could come here and in his win equity and his win rate, if they play this thing 100 times, he probably wins at 5 or 6. He probably misses the cut 20 of those times, right? Because we saw the miscut last year. We know how he likes to kind of have his little sort of tune-up events. So there's some definite concerns about him. But the talent level, right? Like we saw this. I mentioned this with Reed last week where there's guys that are just so good compared to the names around them that sometimes you just have to say, look, if things go right for him, I trust his ability to win down the stretch. Brooks is one of those guys. Patrick Reed's one of those guys. So it's definitely intriguing there's not much love on him right now.
Yeah, by my clock, we are at 8:39. So this IPO is going to close in about 17 to 20 minutes, something in that range. Let me give away a little bit more money. This time, Sacco is on the board. Congratulations, $20 coming your way, Sacco. If you want to be like Sacco, go ahead and drop your Jock Market username in the chat right now. Give yourself a chance to win $20. I've got 60 more to give away, and I'll continue to do that as we go through this evening. But I've given the big board another refresh, Joe. We're not seeing too much movement at the top. Victor Hovland, Abraham Answer, Billy Horschel, Aaron Wise, similar names. But Taylor Gooch has emerged on the scene, $6.55. And when the odds came out on Monday morning, I raised an eyebrow at Taylor Gooch and the guys that he was being priced with. But when you dive deeper into the results, when you dive deeper into the metrics, it's really hard to argue with how good he's been.
Look at those last 3 starts, right?
Look at this.
2 top 5s and an 11th in his last 3 starts, all returning over double your money, well over in each one of those. The price point's higher this week, but as you can see on that graph there, the form would definitely indicate that it's warranted.
Yeah, it really has been, and the way that he does it via the approach. I shouldn't say ball striking because it's really all approach play, but it is really impressive stuff. Let's move on back to the big board here. Joaquin Niemann, Scotty Scheffler, a couple of young guns in the low $6 range, but let's see if we can find some true value here. Okay, how about this one? Here's a conundrum. Patrick Reed, the guy that we talked about last week, and you made the point. Sometimes it's just about pure talent. He finishes T2. Now what? Like now what do we do with the guy? We don't know necessarily how he played last week. We don't have the strokes gained metrics. We can make some assumptions, but now what do we do?
I know, right? We can make some assumptions. I saw a chip in. I saw a long eagle hole out from
after he hit one into the hazard, and then he holes out for eagle.
Yeah. So, it's Patrick Reed doing Patrick Reed things, right? When the stats don't really tell you that he's playing terribly, all of a sudden he plays incredibly. The field's stronger this week. I worry that maybe some of that momentum last week carries his price point a little bit above where I think that the break-even line probably is on him. Like I mentioned earlier, you get wayward off the tee here and there's big problems awaiting. That's always a concern with Patrick Reed. But his ability to just scramble and just score and just claw his way up the leaderboard is something that you can't really quantify.
Yeah, 8:42 by my clocks. We've got about 15 to 18 minutes until this IPO closes. I'll give away another $20 here shortly. If you haven't deposited yet, now would be a pretty good time. $50 deposit bonus if you use the code POWER. That's what you want to do. Let me open the board up to you here, Joe. Sub $5. Any name you want. Tony Finau still hanging down there. That's not going to stay there for long, so don't pick him. Carlos Ortiz, Chris Kirk, last week's winner, Lucas Herbert. I mean, what? There is a plethora of, I think, at least interesting guys down here. Is there anyone that's more interesting than others?
Yeah, I may need to do a quick little refresh here, but I think Scott Stallings, I have some interest in this week. Blazed through Sunday with a 62. I think he opened up last week. I'm not sure if he was in the bad wave or not, but had like a 74 or something the opening round. Then 3 straight in the 60s, right? He's gained strokes from what I saw off the tee in 10 consecutive PGA Tour events. If we're placing an emphasis on that this week, I think it should set up well for him. I like the fact that he competed well. He got himself a top 5 last week. Couple that with a top 6, I think, at the Fortinet about a month ago. So the form is pretty good. I like him right around that $5 mark. I don't mind going right back.
Yeah, he is checking in currently at $4.05. So if you're a buyer of Scott Stallings at $4.05, you're asking him to finish like 41st or better. That's not so bad. And he has certainly popped off in his Jock Market career. Right below that is Adam Long, $4.03. He has been boom or bust. And then I scroll a little bit further. Now, here's one that's interesting. Wasn't it last Wednesday, Joe? Correct me if I'm wrong. Christian Bizadenholt was one of the most expensive golfers, one of the favorites to win this event. Now he's currently the 7th pre-ranked golfer, and he's $3 a share. What what is happening here?
Yeah, we see it. There's a number of guys last week who were like big odds, and now all of a sudden have just tripled Willett's another one who was like 35 to 1 last week. Now he's like 150 to 1 because of one bad week. I like Bizadenholt again. Like you mentioned, the form, I think the upside is there. The top 10 pre-rank is also important. I think that there's just, I think this course, I think most people are placing a little bit more emphasis on accuracy off the tee, which I'm not sure exactly how he rates out, but I think that's just giving a bump to guys around him, like even like Brendan Todd, who's won here, Streelman, Ches Reavie, these type of guys that tend to find the fairway a good bit, I think are just boosting up in popularity.
All right, let me go back to the board here, and I'll give away the next $20 here momentarily. So make sure your Jock Market username is in the chat. Going back to the pre-rank, so these would be in theory your big dogs: Tony Finau, Terrell Hatton. They've doubled since the last time we've talked about it, but still. Brooks Koepka still $4.50. He continues to lag behind, and Shane Lowry continues to lag behind. He's another guy that his results, Joe, are probably masked because he's had a couple of better results on the European tour compared to what we're seeing here on the PGA Tour.
I know, and he does definitely seem like a great value right now. He had some great performances in like majors. He tends to show up. And some of those are in big time events. You see a lot of spikes there, like you mentioned. That's not even factoring in the European Tour stuff. Average ROI 53.3% is huge in the Jock market, especially considered a lot of these are happening in big fields in big time events. I like Lowry if sort of the conditions pick up and we get a little wind and a little rain off the water there. We know he's got that sort of moniker of being a mudder. So yeah, I think that he makes a ton of sense, particularly at his price point now. We'll see if he makes a late charge here.
All right. While I refresh the big board, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give away $20 more to the Jock market. This one goes to, I just had the comment. Here it is. Joe Weaver, congratulations. We'll get you all set up with your $20 into the Jock market. I got to email those guys. It'll take probably a day or two, so just bear with us. If you want to be like Joe, if you want to be like Sacco, if you want to be like Roe Tide and get yourself $20, go ahead and drop your Jock Market username in the chat right now. Very, very simple to do. Back to the big board here, Joe, and I want to sort this by pricing. And we are probably now 10 minutes out. So things are shaping up, and the way that they're shaping up, probably no surprise that Victor Hovland is 806. We'll see how much more he can extend. Abraham Answer 751, Billy Horschel $7. If you can only buy shares of one of these three golfers this evening, let's just rank them. In which order would you want to be allocating these dollars?
I'm going to take the additional, the price break there on Horschel, and then I'm going to go Hovland, then I'm going to go Answer last. I think Hovland has the biggest upside. I worry a little bit off the tee. We'll see how that kind of shakes out, but I'll take a little bit of a discount on Billy Ho.
Right behind those guys, Wise, Gooch, Scheffler. This does not yet, and I know there's 10 minutes left. This doesn't resemble the odds.
No,
it doesn't, right?
We need to see Finau. We need to see JT. We need to see Brooks. We need to see Terrell Hatton. Like, I'm pretty sure we're going to see all these guys waiting. I'm sure guys like Austin are just kind of hanging in the alleys right now, waiting to pounce on 100 shares. But we'll see the bump. But yeah, it is kind of awkward seeing those guys all inside the top six.
Yeah, I'm actually going to give this another refresh here to see if I can find these guys anywhere closer to the top. Not really. Justin Thomas trying to make some headway. There are a couple of interesting names that are currently sitting in the $5 mark, $5.25 for Matthew Wolff. Will Zalatoris is just a penny over $5, and Ricky Fowler along with Gary Woodland. And how about this? Last week's favorite, Matt Fitzpatrick, is $5. He finished T30 in an event that everyone was blowing him in every single direction. This to me, as we sit here right now at $5, Matt Fitzpatrick and Patrick Reed have to be the two. Well, what's Brooks at? Okay, Brooks is $5.25. Like they're both that price that can't be right. We got to get that up.
Fitzpatrick a lot this week. I liked him last week. You mentioned he was the top guy in the field. He came off of a recent European Tour win. He's number one in strokes gained putting, I think, over the last year on the PGA Tour, or he's in that top 3 range. And he does a lot of the things that you want to see done well at a course like this. Look, he got the bad weather draw. I think he came out and quoted and said it was the toughest conditions he's ever played golf in. So he got through that. He managed to make the cut. He didn't play great, but he's still top 30. And at $5 a share, you don't need him to do a whole lot better than that. I think this could be a good opportunity to kind of go back to Fitzpatrick here in a little bit of a dip week.
Yeah, the way this is setting up, we are in for a flurry towards the end because there's just too many good names, or at least we're in for a lot of value coming, Joe. And are you planning accordingly? I mean, this thing seems like it's going to get wild in the next 7 minutes.
It's interesting, like even going back to last year when we looked at some of that Mayakoba data, and when we did this show early on, all the time we saw guys breaking through $11, $12 mark, like consistently. It seemed to be as strategies have kind of evolved, people have sort of shifted to this $4 or $5 range, which we've seen is where a lot of the profit margin can be had. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this thing plays out. I think there are some guys sub $3, even right now, that I think set up very well and could be opportunities over the next 10 minutes or so.
All right, well, let's find them. Let's give away the secrets here. Sub $3. Let's go to page 2. I'll just open this up to you here because we've got, a million names. I could make a case for a lot of these guys. Who in this sub $3 range is most appealing to you?
I like Svensson again. I've been liking him. I think there's a case to be made for Matt Kuchar, believe it or not. I have it 298. I may need to refresh, but you look top 35s in both of his recent starts. He also had a top 30 at the Wyndham before that, which is a shorter course. So, if there's a spot for Cooch, it's this, right? Brian Stewart is another guy who kind of fits the mold of a player that I think could have success here. Brendan Steele, like anytime I like Keegan, I kind of default and like Brendan Steele as well. I think he does a lot of the similar things. Keith Mitchell, like was running away. The guys on PGA Tour Live basically handed him the CJ Cup trophy after Friday a couple of weeks ago. He's on a shorter, not Bermuda course, but in conditions that he should be familiar with and he's had success with in the past. These guys are just all cheap.
How about Brian Gay? Brian Gay's won this event. Brian Gay's like 10 for 10 in cuts or something ridiculous, and he's got a couple of top 20s. He played well enough last week. I think the list of guys that, we liked last week further down the board that you should probably still consider would be like Knox, Gay, Stewart. Maybe I'm missing somebody. And then the two favorites at the top, Christian Bizadenholt, Matt Fitzpatrick, if they were favorites last week. I know this field's a lot stronger, but like this is the recency bias, Joe. This is people just like, okay, 1 week I did my research, throw them away. Golf's not like that, right? Like it's these guys build towards things. I think that's a recency bias issue that we have.
They build toward things and things happen. Like if you play golf, you can know that you could come out one day and shoot a 78. And that doesn't mean you're shooting well the next day, right? It's volatile. It's one of the most craziest sports in that regard. So just because a guy didn't play well last week, maybe caught the wind on a tough afternoon, missed the cut, doesn't. Denny McCarthy, $1.67. He was very popular last week. He was 40-1 in some betting markets. Willett's still way down there. So there's names. Hank Lebiota's 176. Like these guys are really cheap, and we've seen them have pop performances over the last 6 months here.
All right, here we go. I'm going to give you one last look at this big board, and we're going to cut you out of here because it's 8:53. Joe is going to go and start doing his bidding. That way we can talk about his portfolio and the shares of golfers that he has in just a few minutes. The top of the board is shaping up. It's looking a lot more like the favorites, but the name that I know, Joe, that you've got favorited, Brooks Koepka, continues to lag behind. $5.25. There is just seemingly no positive sentiment on Brooksy this week.
I'll be in there, man.
I know you will.
I'm going to be bidding these last couple of minutes. We'll see if I can get it. I have a price in mind that I will not go above that I'll share here in about 6 minutes. But yeah, look, he's too cheap right now. I still think, Justin Thomas, I did just see a little bit of a bump here now to $8 a share. I think Hatton's too cheap. I think Finau's too cheap. So there's a lot of names at the top. Obviously, Brooks kind of sticks out here. I think people are just sort of waiting on him.
Yep. All right. Get out of here. Joe's going to go do his thing. It is 8:54. When we get to 8:57 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to enter a 90-second window. That window can close this IPO at any time. So that's a way to keep it fair, keep it nice and random. But let me show you the big board here. And no surprise to see Viktor Hovland at the top, $8.06, with Justin Thomas, who did just get that bump that Joe mentioned, at $8.01. So basically $8 a share for those golfers. You're asking them to finish 18th or better at that price. Abraham Ancer, Tony Finau, and Billy Horschel rounding out the $7 range. That is starting to shape up a lot more like what the odds look like for these golfers. A little bit further down the board, $675 for Scotty Scheffler. If you're a buyer of Scotty at $675, you're asking him to finish 23rd or better. See how this starts to shape up. Taylor Gooch, $6.55. Joaquin Niemann, $6.15. And that man who's coming off a runner-up finish last week, Patrick Reed, $6.05. Then we start to enter a huge tier of $5 golfers. We almost went a full hour without mentioning Mito Pereira. We're not going to do that anymore. He has actually lost you money in 3 consecutive cash markets. So sentiment starting to, come back down to earth a little bit. $5.56 for Mito. That's essentially asking him to finish 30th or better. 30th or better for the Chilean Matt Fitzpatrick, who was your favorite last week, $5.55 as well. Let me give this a refresh here. While I do that, I'm going to give away more money to the Jock Market here shortly, so make sure that you have your Jock Market username in the chat. We are at 8:55 p.m. Eastern time by my clock, which means we are just probably 2 or 3 minutes away from this IPO closing, and it's finally happened. As expected, Justin Thomas has taken over the role as the most expensive golfer in this cash market, $8.25. He is not only the favorite, according to odds makers, but he has that very important number 1 pre-rank, which means that he is going to break all ties. No matter who he is tied with, he is getting the full payout in that spot. Viktor Hovland still the only other golfer over $8.06, and he has not moved in quite some time. Are we seeing any movement on Brooks Koepka? We certainly are, because Joe is heads down and he's probably bidding on him. $5.98, which essentially is asking Brooks Koepka to finish 28th or better. Probably a high risk, high reward option, but Brooks Koepka, Terrell Hatton, both at $5.98. Cameron Tringale had a close call at the Zozo Championship the last time we saw him. He was $7.88 per share at the Zozo, only $5.88 this week. Probably been one of the more valuable Jock Market golfers, I would imagine, over the past couple, probably last 6 to 12 months. Sergio Garcia down in that mid $5 range, along with Matthew Wolff, Keegan Bradley, and Ricky Fowler. Before we get down into the fours with guys like Johnny Vegas, one of the best ball strikers on tour recently. Joel Damon, who has won at a tropical course before. He won in Punta Cana earlier this year. Brendan Todd, Kevin Shulman rounding out this group as well. I'm going to try to give this one more refresh because I think we're in that window. We're in that 90-second window, which means this can close at any time. So Joe's going to give me an idea when we're closed, but for right now, we're still open. And I'm going to give... okay. Justin Thomas, 850, and here comes Abraham Ancer. That's right. The native Mexican in his home country at $8.25, the 4th ranked pre-golfer. He has returned you a profit in 3 of his last 4 cash markets. The only one he didn't, the strange miscut at the Shriners. Viktor Hovland, now the 3rd most expensive golfer, $8.16, with Tony Finau. That's probably a surprise to me. The 4th most expensive golfer. Aaron Wise is behind. Billy Horschel is behind. Brooks Koepka is behind. Terrell Hatton is behind. Matt Fitzpatrick is behind. Patrick Reed is behind. There's a lot of names behind Tony Finau right now, but it's shaping up like he is going to be a popular one this evening, with Aaron Wise and Billy Horschel still holding strong above that $7 mark. Alex Noren looks like he saw a big jump here, $5.75. If you're a buyer of Noren at $5.75, you're asking him to finish 29th or better. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for one more refresh here and see if I can get it in time, because we are literally moments away from this IPO closing. At any moment, it can close. At any moment, those bids are going to be locked. And here we go at the top. Viktor Hovland has regained the most expensive golfer in the cash market, now $8.88 a share. He jumps back over Abraham Ancer, back over Justin Thomas at $8.88 a share. You are asking him to finish 14th or better for the defending champion. What else do we have here? Hatton is making a move. Brooks Koepka making a little bit of a move. They're actually in tow together. $6.50 right in that range. While we see Mito Pereira hang at the same price. Sergio Garcia hasn't moved in seemingly 10 or 15 minutes. Christian Bizadenholt, one of the last week's favorites, only $5.06. Emiliano Grillo, who has never lost on Paspalum greens, $4.75. Rory Sabatini and Lucas Herbert, our winner from last week, the same price. Are we still live, Joe? I've got $8.59.
We're still live.
Taylor Pendrith almost ran away with the Bermuda Championship before faltering on Sunday. Still returns you 148% ROI. In no other market did Taylor Pendrith make you that much money.
Ding, ding, ding. Close her down.
Shut it down. The IPO is closed.
Whew. I got a lot of guys.
I like to hear that. That's what I like to hear. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. We're going to let the dust settle here. Give me a second to make sure that I have everything in order here. And I'm going to give away money here in a second. We're going to let all the stats and everything load in. I'm going to give away $20 more here. I just lost it. I think it was this one. Well, now that I've showed it, it's definitely going to have to be this one. So, Matthew, if it wasn't you that I picked, we will get you the money. Congratulations. I'll get that money into your account. Let me type in your name here real quick. Okay, so we'll get that money over to you. I've got $20 more to give away, so make sure your Jock Market username is in the chat right now. Joe.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your portfolio. How many golfers are we talking about?
All right. I'm waiting for them to come over, but I believe I have 10 guys this week if I was able to get them all. I spent a lot at the top. A lot of guys felt too cheap. And I'm hoping to get a win out of one of them. I need one of them to come through and give me that $25 a share, I think. But come on, refresh. Okay. Here we go. You ready for the rundown?
Let's do it.
Justin Thomas, 865.
Already, so listen, I can tell you Justin Thomas was the second most expensive golfer. Yep. I would imagine that anytime you can get the second most expensive golfer, anytime that you can get the favorite as the second most expensive golfer and he's the number one pre-rank, I think you did a good job. Just like by default.
And you run like the tournament sims. Like what were the sims on Thomas winning this week? Like
they love him. He was I don't have it in front of me, but I'm sure he was like one of the top two guys because he is listen, he's got winning upside. And it's
like 865. That's like $3 cheaper than he was at this event last year where he lost, but he still got $10 a share. Same thing happens this year. I'm making money. Moving down. Right. Brooks Koepka.
I knew that was coming.
688.
There was no chance you weren't going to get out of here. Brooks. Yeah, there was no chance you weren't going to get out of here with Brooks Koepka. So $6.88 a share. Yeah, man, it's pretty darn cheap. I'm just kind of looking back through some of the history here. Last year he was $8.58 at this event, so you got a $2 discount on last year. Obviously, I think, and you alluded to this earlier, seems risky, but if you're willing to embrace the risk, you got a great price.
Yeah, willing to embrace the risk. He's got to finish 24th or better. I'll take it. I'll roll the dice on him. Shane Lowry, another guy we talked about that I thought was just too cheap, $6.05 per share. A couple of guys that I hit in that $5 range. So I did get Keegan, who was my mid-cap play at $5.28. I did get Scott Stallings, who we talked about at $4.20. And then I took a handful of guys cheap here. Low threes, high $2 range. Guido, he was my penny stock at $3.55. Then I got three guys in the $2 range. Denny, Davis Riley, who had a top 7 last week. I like these young guys, Rick, when they can put together a solid start. Like it feels like it's so important for their confidence and maybe that they can back that up on kind of a similar feel this week. And then Adam Svensson, who I've been all over. He was good to me last week. I'm going to roll it back with him. So a juicy portfolio this week. I'm hoping to catch the winner in one of those top 3 guys and make a little money on the rest.
I do think, and I commend you for this, because I do think one of the flaws that we deal with, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, if you liked somebody last week, and this applies to most weeks, you should probably like them the next week as well, right? If you're looking at recent form and styles of golfers, so I do often in different DFS formats, I'll run back similar type teams, similar type players. And I commend you for doing something similar here. So Justin Thomas, Brooks Koepka, Shane Lowry, Keegan Bradley, Scott Stallings, Guido, Denny, Davis Riley, Adam Svensson, rounding out Joe's portfolio. You can let us know who you got in the chat, because I can already see, Guy says 50 shares of book. Brooks, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark.
It was a heavy hand, man. $7 I mentioned was my mark. That was the bid that I had in. He didn't quite get to that point. I was willing to pay for up to 50 shares of Brooks at sub $7, and that's what I ended up getting. But I expected the bump to come late. It just felt like he kind of really lagged behind. Where did he end up finishing? Curious to see here, just on the board in terms of if you
He's
sort
right
by
here.
price.
Yeah, so he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 8th most expensive golfer in the slate, 688, 22nd or so. That's his break-even point.
Yeah, I think I thought that he was a little bit lower than that, but that just kind of speaks to what we're seeing in terms of IPO price moving down, I think, on the top of the board in general, based on what we saw like a year ago, where the top guys are going for a little bit less, just because to be frank, the upside isn't quite there when you're capped at $25 a share, but based on what you pay for them. And a miscut is very detrimental, which I'm hoping to not happen this week out of Brooks like he did last year here.
Certainly true. Top of the board looks similar to the odds board. Hovland, Thomas, Answer, Finau close enough. Wise up there, whatever. Billy Horschel up there. Scotty Scheffler sneaking in as well. Hatton, to me, again, I think he's kind of a high risk guy. He does not get credit for a good European Tour victory a couple of weeks ago. But that third pre-rank, like, I would identify him as someone that I like. If you got shares of Tyrrell Hatton, I think on this Wednesday night, I think I like that spot.
Yeah, I like that spot for Hatton too. I ended up kind of just pivoting to Lowry a little bit down the board, as I felt like that he kind of has a similar-ish skill set, right? Good iron player that you trust in sort of tough conditions. So, but yeah, Hatton definitely, him and Brooks there being sub $7 are a little surprising.
A little bit further. This is where I think there's a lot of value, just because there's so many names in this $5 range. I do like the price on Keegan at $528. I love the price on Seamus Power at $552. I could also be talked into Sergio Garcia at $550 without too much trouble. Is there anyone that stands out here? Is it Reed at $632? Is it
maybe Mito? I was thinking
Mito.
I mean, it does feel kind of cheap for him comparative to where his IPO prices have been lately, in a reasonably, I think, accessible field type for some of his strengths. So he kind of sticks out. Bizadenholt is another guy who didn't really creep much above that $5 mark, who's, still 7th in the pre-rank, had a rough finish. But before that, like you mentioned, he was one of the favorites last week in Bermuda.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I know we injected, 7 of the top 20 players in the world, but that should knock you 50 spots down the board or whatever that it did. Let me give away more money here. So I had one pick, so I lost track of all my comments here. Chris Yost will get you set up with $20 into your account. And by my tracking, that should be all 5 of those spots. So Joe, the fun has only just begun, because we are now entering the live portion of this. Have you been messing around with shorting, which is, started to be available in the last couple of weeks? Have you been messing around with that?
I haven't done a whole lot of shorting. Just, it seems like in golf, there's still a little bit of a gap there between the player's actual like projected price point and where the active bid in. If I see those kind of get a little bit closer together, I think shorting becomes a lot more of a viable strategy.
Okay, fair enough. And then the weather report, again, obviously can change all the time. Doesn't look like there's going to be a huge weather discrepancy, but hey, they're still teeing off early, at least for me. They're on the East Coast. There might be some places to get in. I think that Friday afternoon, as the cut line is starting to come into clarity, and you're starting to see guys who have 9 holes left, still feels like the best I don't want to say most exploitable, but like the best time to be in the market.
Absolutely. That's when I always like to keep tabs on guys. You see someone 1 or 2 strokes off the cut line. Maybe they've got a couple of par 5s coming up. great opportunity to catch them cheap at around, the $150 to $2 range. And like we see so many times, once they can kind of get through that cut line, things happen on the weekend, right? They move themselves into the top 30, top 20. You can definitely see some significant returns if that is your sort of strategy.
All right. Next week is Houston. So we're going to have Houston, RSM off. And then there's a Hero World Challenge, which we're going to try to get in touch with the Jock Market guys and find out one way or another if there's going to be a contest for the Hero World Challenge. Because if you put 18 golfers out there with no cut in a Jock Market, you, my friend, are piquing my interest.
I'm hopeful we can work it out. We'll talk to our guy. We'll send our guy over there an email, try to get on top of him early. But we did it for the Tour Championship with 30 guys. So I think we just have to figure out a way to kind of create the pricing for 18 guys, and we can have a little fun with it.
You can follow Joe on Twitter. He is at Tour Picks. You can follow me at RickRunGood. We'll be back same time, 8:15 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday for Houston. But for now, enjoy Mayakoba. Enjoy the beauty out there. Enjoy the course, and best of luck this week.